Revealed, how a senior officer's unexpected divorce by email changed his life forever. On a mission, David stared at the screen, his heart racing. The email's subject line felt like a punch to the gut: divorce notice. He read the words over and over, each line stabbing deeper. I understand you're dedicated to your duty, but I can't keep waiting for a husband who's never home. The world he built around family and service crumbled in an instant. A man known for his unwavering commitment now faced an unfamiliar battlefield: loneliness. In the small town where he grew up, David was the steady rock, a senior officer who wore his love for both country and community like a badge. As the townsfolk planned summer barbecues and 4th of July parades, David stood proud, his uniform crisp and attention unwavering. But now, every cheerful face felt like a reminder of the void creeping into his life. The air grew heavy with despair as he grappled with the mounting loneliness. It was as if the very essence of his identity had been ripped away. Determined not to wallow, David turned his heartache into action. He began mentoring local youth, pouring all his passion into helping them navigate their own life struggles. They rallied around him, their youthful energy fanning the flames of his spirit. Just keep pushing forward, he told them, hoping that their tenacity might somehow ignite hope in his own heart. Still, whenever he reached out to his wife, his well-meaning words fell flat against her steadfast wall of hurt. The emotional distance between them felt like miles. In a desperate attempt to win back her affections, David buried himself in work. Financial stability would surely mend what was broken, he thought. But he was wrong. His life routine came crashing down after a tragic accident unfolded in town. A local teenager, who David had recently mentored, was killed in a car crash. The community mourned together, but amidst the sorrow, David felt the weight of unaddressed emotions pressing down harder. It was a wake-up call: something had to change. At a heartfelt town gathering in the park, David stood at the podium, his heart pounding in his chest. The chatter faded, and the crowd turned their attention to him, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. I'm here tonight because I've realized something, he began, his voice cracking. Balancing duty and family isn't just about service, it's about being present. Tears welled in the eyes of mothers and fathers alike as they connected with his struggles. David's vulnerability struck a chord within them, sparking an emotional connection that rippled through the audience. Before we continue, he said urgently, shifting the tone, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he spoke on, memories of laughter, joy, and family flooded back. While he shared his story, the crowd leaned in, feeling a shared sense of healing. Yet amid the warmth of that gathering, a silent question loomed: could his words rekindle love with his wife? Would this newfound vulnerability be the bridge to reconciliation, or merely an unveiling of fractures deepening between them? The emotional stakes had never been higher, and as the night wrapped around them like a warm blanket, David's journey toward healing was just beginning. The following morning, the sun broke through David's window with an unexpected vibrancy. For the first time in weeks, he felt a lingering sense of resolve. The gathering had stirred something deep within him, igniting a tiny flame of hope. Maybe it was time to do more than just mend fences, maybe it was time to rebuild entirely. He slipped into his uniform, the crisp fabric feeling like the armor he desperately needed. As he stepped outside, the town seemed both familiar and foreign. Each corner held a shadow of his past, a reminder of who he used to be: a devoted husband, a loving father. Memories flooded back as he walked to the local cafe, where the townsfolk congregated to share stories over hot coffee. Inside, he spotted Mrs. Henderson, the cheerful owner who always had a smile tucked beneath her apron. She looked up, her face lighting up when she saw him. David. Haven't seen you around much these days. How's everything with your family? The question hung there like an anchor, tugging at his heart. It's complicated, he replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Mrs. Henderson's expression softened, sensing the heaviness in his voice. "Do you want to talk about it?" she offered gently. David knew he could spill his heart to her, but he hesitated. He wasn't ready to bare his soul just yet. "Maybe later. Just trying to find my footing again, you know?" She nodded, understanding without judgment. He appreciated that. That understanding felt like a lifeline. As he sipped his coffee, he watched the other patrons, the laughter of friends, the young couple in the corner with their intertwined hands, the playful banter of children at a nearby table. Each moment was a reminder of what he had lost. Yet, deep within the ache, the ember of hope flickered. If he could only find the right words, the right way to reach out, perhaps he could bridge the gap that had widened between him and his wife. In the days that followed, David committed to more than just mentoring the youth. He began writing. Thoughts spilled from him like water from a broken dam. He filled pages with confessions, reminders of all the joy his family had brought him, the dreams that had danced in his mind since he was a boy. It wasn't just for his wife to read, no, it was for him too. A reflection of his soul laying bare, vulnerable yet determined. He spent hours crafting a letter, pouring every ounce of love and regret into words meant to reach her heart. "I'm here," he wrote. "And I want to be the man you fell in love with again." But as he sealed the envelope, doubt crept in. Would this be enough? Could she ever truly forgive him? Anxiety gripped his stomach as he realized each word could either heal the rift between them or drive a deeper wedge. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether to leap or hold back. As David stood in front of her home, the letter trembling in his hands, he noticed the mailbox, battered but standing tall. It reminded him of himself, weathered yet unbroken. Taking a deep breath, he approached the door, heart racing. He would deliver the letter himself, because words meant to heal needed the warmth of his presence. But what if she didn't want to see him? What if she slammed the door like the storm ripping through his heart? He knocked softly, a gentle plea shrouded in fear, for he knew the weight of this moment would answer all his questions and perhaps reshape their future forever. Would he find the love they once shared, or was it too late? The door swung open, and his heart thudded painfully against his chest. Sarah stood there, her eyes wide with surprise. The pale light from the setting sun framed her face, highlighting the vulnerability that lingered just beneath her often guarded expression. David wanted to embrace her, to pull her close and erase the distance that had formed, but the moment felt too fragile, too steeped in the past. "David," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "Hi," he managed, his own voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. The letter in his hand felt heavy, a lifeline he was desperate to cast into the churning sea of regret that had engulfed their lives. "What is going on?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she stepped back slightly, allowing just enough space for him to enter. Taking a deep breath, David stepped inside. Everything looked just as he remembered: the worn couch, the family photos lining the walls, the faint scent of cinnamon lingering in the air. Memories flooded back, each one like a sharp reminder of everything that had slipped through his fingers. "I came to talk," he started, his heart racing. The words danced on his tongue, but the fear of how she would react tightened his throat. He held the envelope tightly, his knuckles turning white as he searched for the right words. As he shifted from one foot to the other, Sarah crossed her arms, a gesture that felt both defensive and hopeful. "About what, exactly?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with uncertainty. "I wrote you a letter," he finally said, each word carrying the weight of his sincerity. He held it out to her, but she hesitated, glancing down at the envelope as if it were a live wire. "What do you expect me to do with this?" Her voice edged with doubt, bitterness creeping in. "I want you to read it," he urged gently. "It's everything I haven't said. Everything I've felt." She took a cautious step closer, curiosity sparkling in her eyes for a brief moment before it dimmed again. "Words can't fix what's broken, David." He nodded, fully aware of the magnitude of her pain. "I know that. But I need you to hear me out. Please." With a sigh, Sarah finally reached out and took the envelope from him. The simple touch felt electric, like a thread connecting them back to a happier time. She tore it open, her hands trembling slightly as she unfolded the letter. David's breath hitched as she began to read. He watched her face, could see the way her brows knitted together, the slight quiver of her lips. He ached to reach out, to pull her into his arms and hold her close, but he stood frozen, a bystander to their shared story unraveling before his eyes. Minutes passed in silence, the words hanging heavily in the air. When she finished, her gaze met his, but it was a storm of emotions: confusion, hurt, lingering affection. "What if I don't want to go back?" she asked quietly, and David felt the ground beneath him shift. "I know I've hurt you," he whispered, stepping forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "But I want to try. I'm willing to fight for us. Will you give me a chance?" Silence stretched between them once again, every second thick with unspoken feelings and the weight of choices. With a heart full of hope and unease, David waited, praying for a hint of movement, a softening in her stance, a flicker of emotion that would guide them back from the edge. But what he saw next would change everything. Was this the moment they both embraced their past, or would they slip further away from each other's lives, forever haunted by what could have been? David's breath caught as Sarah's expression changed. A flicker of pain washed over her face, then morphed into a steely resolve. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, her eyes filled with unshed tears. It felt like a punch to his gut. "Sarah, please," he pleaded, stepping closer, desperation edging each word. "I can't just forget, David," she finally whispered, her voice shaking. "You broke me." Each syllable pierced through the air, thick with the weight of their shared history. Memories of laughter, late-night talks, and dreams yet to be chased swirled in his mind, aspects of their lives that felt like they flitted just beyond his reach now. "I know," he said softly, his heart hammering in his chest. "I see that now. When I thought of what I lost you. Not just as a partner, but as my best friend." Her lips pressed into a thin line as she swallowed, wrestling with the emotions storming inside her. "Friend?" she asked, disbelief lacing her voice. "Friends don't walk away when things get tough." "I was foolish," he admitted, taking another step closer. "I ran away from the very thing I should have cherished. I was scared. I didn't know how to face my mistakes. But I've changed, Sarah. I've learned. I promise you I won't run anymore." She blinked rapidly, and a single tear escaped, slipping down her cheek. "It's not that easy, David. You can't just come back into my life and expect it all to be fine like nothing ever happened." "I don't expect that," he replied urgently. "But I hope you'll let me try to earn your trust again. I can't just let you go without fighting for this, for us. I don't want to be just a chapter in your past." "I won't." "Be careful what you wish for," she interrupted, her voice firm yet soft, like a whisper of wind before a storm. David took a deep breath, feeling the tension wrap around him like a steel band. "I know the risk, but I'm willing to face it. I want you in my life, even if it takes time. What if I'm not the same person anymore?" she interjected, her eyes flashing. "What if I can't forgive you?" "Then let me try to love you where you are now," he said, his heart pleading with sincerity. "Let me show you how I've changed. Can you give me a chance to prove it's worth it?" The silence that enveloped them pulsed with their unspoken fears. He searched her eyes, hoping to find a glimmer of reassurance, understanding, anything that told him there was still a spark left. Finally, Sarah leaned back against the wall, the tension diffusing slightly as she considered his words. "Prove it," she said at last, her voice steady but not unkind. "Prove that you're here for the long haul. Starting now." David felt a rush of relief mixed with uncertainty. This was their moment. With a tentative nod, he knew he was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. "Okay," he replied, feeling a newfound determination rise within him. "What do you need me to do?" Sarah sighed, her eyes narrowing slightly. "First, stop thinking about the past. We need to find out who we are now before we decide what we want next." As she spoke, he realized this was more than just a reconciliation. It was an opportunity to reforge their connection entirely. There was no going back, only moving forward. David felt a warmth spread in his chest, but also fear. What if he couldn't rise to the occasion? What if they stumbled upon old wounds instead of healing completely? Let us start with a dinner, Sarah suggested unexpectedly, her tone lightening. Just like old times. Can you handle that? His heart soared at her words. I'd love that, he replied. But as he watched her turn away, doubt crept in again. Was a single dinner enough to rebuild a life, or would it just pull the threads tighter before they snapped? David's mind raced with possibilities, anxiety swirling at the edge of hope. He stepped forward, ready to embrace the unknown. What lay ahead could either strengthen them or tear them apart all over again. Bracing himself for whatever came next, he wondered if their hearts could truly become whole again. The restaurant was a cozy little spot tucked away on a quiet street. The kind of place that whispered of secrets shared over candlelight and laughter lingering long into the night. As David walked in, the familiar aroma of roasted garlic and freshly baked bread wrapped around him like a warm hug. He spotted Sarah at a corner table, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass, the flicker of the candle dancing across her face, illuminating the emotions playing in her eyes. His heart raced as he approached, each step thick with anticipation. Would she still see him as the man she once trusted? As he slid into the chair opposite her, a heaviness settled over the table, a silent acknowledgement of the weight of their past. Hi, he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Hi, she echoed, a half-smile teasing her lips. There was a moment of stillness, as if the world outside had paused, holding its breath in anticipation of what was to unfold. So, how have you been? She asked, her eyes probing yet shy. David swallowed hard. I've been trying to figure it all out. A lot of time to think, you know. About what went wrong. It didn't take long for that, Sarah remarked lightly, attempting to keep the mood light, but the tremor in her voice betrayed the tension that simmered beneath the surface. I'm sorry, he said, the words spilling out before he could contain them. For hurting you. For not being there. I wish I could go back and change things. Do you even know what you would change? She asked, leaning forward slightly, her brow furrowed. You can't keep living in the past, David. It doesn't work that way. You're right, he said, the realization hitting him hard. But I want to know your feelings now. I want to understand what you need from me. Her gaze softened, yet there was a wariness that lingered. Everyone wants to change, David. But not everyone can. Then help me, he urged, the earnestness in his voice echoing through the space around them. Help me understand how I can be the person you need. A flicker of vulnerability crossed her face just a moment, a thin veneer over the protective wall she had built. It's not about just you, David. It's about me too. I need to rediscover who I am without you. David felt a pang at her words. A truth he had to respect. I understand, and I respect that. I'll be here, ready to support you, whatever that looks like. With that, a flicker of hope ignited in his chest. He could see the tiniest spark of possibility in her eyes. Their food arrived, steaming plates piled high with familiar comfort. She had ordered what they used to share. He chuckled, feeling the warm nostalgia wash over him, mingling with the anxiety that still lingered like a distant thundercloud. Remember this dish? He asked, trying to pull her back into a shared moment. A small smile broke on Sarah's face, and just for a brief second, the tension eased. How could I forget? You always said it was your favorite because of you, he interjected playfully, attempting to reel her into laughter. I knew you liked it, so I had to make it my favorite too. Her laughter rang out, soft and genuine, a sound that made his heart ache with longing. The tension lightened, laughter bubbling up like old times, yet it quickly subsided, overshadowed by the gravity of their situation. What if it's just not enough? Sarah suddenly asked, her smile fading, her tone contemplative. Then we keep trying, he answered, his voice firm. If you're willing to work on this together, we can figure it out, step by step. She eyed him, searching for truth, for conviction. You're really serious about this, aren't you? I am, he said, locking eyes with her, feeling every word in his bones. As the evening wore on, the air filled with shared stories and laughter, but a subtle tension underlined their remarks. A promise of the battles ahead, of the deeper conversations waiting just below the surface, ready to surface at the most unexpected moments. As they finished dinner, David knew they stood at a crossroads. Each choice they made from here could bring them closer or fracture them further. "David," she began, her voice steady yet edged with concern. "What if, halfway through this, I realize I still can't forgive you?" His heart pounded. "Then we'll face that together." With a flicker of determination in his eyes, he realized they had just begun a journey. One he hoped would lead them to liberation or heartache, but he was ready for either. Outside, the evening sky darkened, stars beginning to shimmer above, each one a reminder of the endless possibilities ahead. As he walked Sarah to her car, he felt an unshakable sense that this was only the prologue to something much bigger. That he opened the door for her, and as she turned to thank him, their eyes locked for a heartbeat, charged with unvoiced questions and uncharted roads ahead. What if the road they took led to places they had never anticipated? And would they be strong enough to face whatever came their way? As Sarah settled into her seat, David leaned against the open door, still catching his breath from the whirlwind of emotions that evening had stirred. The glow of the streetlights flickered against the deepening indigo of the night sky, pulling them both from their thoughts. "Listen," Sarah said softly, "I really appreciate you being here tonight. I didn't expect this conversation to go the way it did. It felt different." He nodded, the hint of a smile breaking through his tension. "Good different, I hope." "I think so. It just caught me off guard, but in a nice way." She looked down, playing with the hem of her coat as if it held the answers to her uncertainties. A moment stretched between them, charged with everything said and unsaid. Anxiety bubbled in David's stomach, the air felt thick, like the moment before the storm. "What about tomorrow?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with eagerness. "Can we talk again? I'd love to keep this going. I want to understand you more. I want to know what you really need." She hesitated, a shadow crossing her face. "Tomorrow could be complicated. I have things to do. Not just about us, but for you," he interjected quickly. "Rediscovering yourself, remember?" The corner of her mouth flickered upward. "You're right. It's just, I'm afraid of getting lost in the process." David pushed off the car, stepping closer, the heat of his concern warming the space between them. "You won't get lost, I promise. It's okay to take time for yourself. Just let me know how I can help. That's all I ask." She closed her eyes for a brief moment, and when they opened, something deeper reflected in their depths, vulnerability mixed with trepidation. "It's hard, David. I want to say yes, but every time I start to think we can mend this, that fear creeps in. What's the worst that could happen?" He wondered aloud, fearing her answer yet needing to hear it. Sarah lifted her chin, fire lighting her eyes. "What if we fall back into old patterns? What if I give you a chance and it doesn't work? What if?" He cut her off gently, "Then we'll face that too." There was a conviction in his voice that surprised even him. "We've already walked through so much. If we can talk about the broken parts, maybe we can find a way to build something stronger." She searched his face, weighing his words as if they were priceless treasures. "David, I need you to know that I won't just forget what has happened. I won't pretend I'm okay with everything unless I truly am." "I wouldn't want you to," he replied softly. "Honesty is all I can ask from you, Sarah. It's more than fair." The moment hung, hanging in the air like the last notes of a song. They both knew the battle ahead wouldn't be easy, yet amidst the apprehension, David felt a swell of hope. "I'll think about tomorrow. Let us see where it goes," she said finally, a hesitant smile gracing her lips. "Just take it one step at a time," he encouraged, his heart warming as her smile reached her eyes. As she turned the ignition, the engine roared to life, jolting them out of their moment. "I'll text you," she promised, and before he could reply, she drove off into the night, leaving him in the stillness of the street. Standing there, watching her taillights fade into the distance, David felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but the spark of a conversation ignited something inside him, an urge to fight for what they had lost. What would happen if Sarah opened herself up to the possibilities? But more importantly, what if David found the courage to face his own demons? He stood there long after the car was out of sight, contemplating the journey ahead. A journey that was just beginning, full of uncertainty and hope. As he walked away, his phone buzzed in his pocket, sending a ripple of anticipation washing over him. A message from Sarah? Would it be the key to unlocking more than just memories, but a chance for a new future? David pulled his phone from his pocket, his heart racing as he glanced at the screen. It was her name. With trembling hands, he opened the message. Hey, just wanted to say I got home safely. Tonight really made me think. Let us meet for coffee tomorrow. Around 10? I could use a friend, and a little clarity. A mix of relief and excitement washed over him. She wanted to talk. This was the opening he hoped for, and while his mind raced with possibilities, doubt tugged at him. Was coffee enough to mend a heart? He typed a quick response, absolutely. I'll see you at 10. The reassurance felt good. There was a rhythm to the morning that filled him with a new energy. The next day, the sun peeked through the trees, casting a golden hue that felt warm and inviting. He arrived at their usual cafe early, nerves dancing in his stomach. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, a comforting reminder of countless shared mornings. When Sarah walked in, there was something different about her. She looked like a woman who had emerged from a cocoon, still fragile but undeniably strong. Her hair fell softly around her face, and for the first time in a while, she smiled genuinely. Hey, she said, her voice steady and warm. Hey, he replied, feeling the tension ease a little. They settled into their usual corner, a small wooden table that had seen a lifetime of conversations. Sarah's fingers played with her coffee cup, an anxious habit he recognized. I'm really glad we're doing this. Me too, he said truthfully. How are you feeling? Her gaze met his, steady and honest. Conflicted. But I think I'm ready to talk. The words hung in the air, wrapping around them like a delicate thread connecting their past with their present. It was time to confront their history, to dive into the tangled mess they had created. I know we've both made mistakes, she began, pausing to gather her thoughts, but I also know that I've shied away from confronting what went wrong. I need to face it, or I won't be able to move forward. David nodded, the weight of her words settling in his chest. I've felt that too. For so long I was so focused on trying to make things right that I forgot to understand what went wrong. His honesty encouraged her, her barriers slowly crumbling. It's terrifying. Plus, I keep thinking about all the times I failed to be vulnerable. It's like I've built walls to protect myself and, now I feel trapped. Maybe it's time to break those walls down, he suggested softly, allowing his heart to speak. It's hard, but that's how we can change. We can't go back to who we were, but we can become something new together. He saw a flicker of hope in her eyes like sunlight breaking through clouds. I want that, she admitted, her voice small but sure. They say vulnerability is strength, but it sure feels like the opposite sometimes, he replied, the tension easing slightly. Sarah laughed lightly, the sound sending warmth through him. Yeah, it feels a bit like standing at the edge of a diving board, doesn't it? Exactly, he agreed, their connection igniting with a shared understanding. But I think the water might be better than we think. She leaned forward, those walls, once so imposing, seemed to falter. So, what if we start with being honest about how we feel, how this, us, makes us feel? Just as he was about to respond, the cafe door swung open, disrupting their moment. A figure stepped in, drawing their attention. David's heart sank as he recognized his old mentor, James, a man known for his strict demeanor and no-nonsense approach. He walked straight toward them with purpose. David, is that you? James called out, his tone heavy with surprise. What would this unexpected encounter mean for David and Sarah's fragile reconnection? Would it derail the conversation, or would it bring new insight? As they shared glances full of questions, uncertainty loomed over them like a storm about to unleash. David's heart raced even faster as James closed the distance between them. The cafe, once a comforting sanctuary filled with the warmth of coffee and the promise of renewal, felt suddenly small and stifling. He glanced at Sarah, who wore an expression of uncertainty mixed with curiosity. "Hey, James. What brings you here?" David asked, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. James, in his crisp suit, looked out of place amidst the relaxed cafe atmosphere. "Just grabbing a coffee before heading to the office." "It's been a long week," he said, glancing at Sarah, then back at David. "I didn't know you were here with someone. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." David felt the heat rise in his cheeks. "No, not at all. We were just catching up." He could hear the tension in his own voice, betraying his nerves. James raised an eyebrow, clearly doubting that was the entire truth. "Good to see you getting back out there, David. You've been through a lot lately." His comment hung in the air, echoing the unsaid struggles that had weighed heavily on David. "Thanks," Sarah chimed in, her voice steady, trying to fill the silence that James' presence suddenly created. "I'm just a friend trying to help." An awkward tension settled over the table, thick as cream. David wanted to pull James aside, to ask him to leave, to let that moment with Sarah breathe again. But he felt frozen, caught in a web of expectations. James didn't seem to notice the shift. Instead, he took a seat at their table, glancing between them. "So how are things really going?" he asked, his tone light but probing. David's stomach churned. Did James sense the fragility of their conversation? Was he there to chime in with advice or judgment? "We're working on things, James. Just trying to communicate better." James nodded. "Communication's key. It's what you make of it that matters." He paused, looking genuinely contemplative. "I recently experienced that firsthand." David's ears perked up. The mention of personal experience made him wary yet curious. "What do you mean?" James leaned back, the weight of his words evident. "I got an email that changed my life. My wife, she sent me a divorce notice. Just like that. No discussion. No confrontation." David's heart ached at the revelation. James was usually stoic, a man who seemed to have everything in order. "I didn't know." "I'm sorry." James waved off the sympathy, a distant look in his eyes. "It's life. You think you know someone, and then reality hits. It forced me to really take a look inwards. I realized I had built my life around my work, not my relationships." In that moment, David, Sarah, and James shared an unspoken bond of vulnerability. David recognized their collective struggle, the ache to be understood, to be seen for who they truly were. "Is this what you're feeling too, David?" James's voice pulled him from the fog. "The fear of losing someone because you couldn't say what needed to be said?" David met James's gaze, and he could feel the weight of the question hanging between them. "Yeah, it's terrifying," he finally admitted, his heart pounding in a way that felt both liberating and terrifying. "But I want to try. I don't know how." Sarah reached out, placing her hand over his. "We have to face our past to build our future. It's the only way." James watched them with a mix of understanding and admiration. "It's never too late to take a different path. Just don't wait too long to decide." He stood, a new resolve in his step. "Take your time, but don't shy away from what you need." As he walked away, David felt the air shift. The cafe seemed alive again, the chatter surrounding them like a chorus of encouragement. "Do you think we can really do this?" David asked Sarah, uncertainty still lacing his voice. "I think we have to," she replied, squeezing his hand, a flicker of hope brightening her smile. But as David prepared to delve deeper into their conversation, another shadow loomed at the door. A woman with fierce eyes and a stormy expression stood watching them. What was her connection to James? Would she offer more clarity? Or complicate everything further? David's heart thudded in his chest as the woman locked eyes with him. There was an intensity in her gaze that made it impossible to look away. She stood framed by the entrance's soft glow, the bustling cafe around her forgotten in an instant. "Who is that?" David whispered, barely aware he was speaking aloud. Sarah followed his gaze, her brow furrowing. "I have no idea. Do you think she's with James?" "I don't know," David said, feeling a knot in his stomach. "But she seems determined." With a decisive step, the woman crossed the cafe floor, her heels clicking sharply against the tile, slicing through the underlying buzz of conversation. Each step brought tension to the table, and David and Sarah exchanged worried glances. What did she want? As she approached, the air thickened, and David braced himself for whatever was about to unfold. There was something almost regal about her demeanor, but also an unmistakable vulnerability tucked beneath the surface. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice steady yet tinged with something unspoken. "I'm looking for James." "Is he here?" David swallowed hard. "He was just here, but he left a moment ago." "Of course." The woman's expression fell slightly, but she quickly masked it, regaining her composure. "I hope to catch him. I need to talk to him about." She hesitated, emotions swirling in her eyes. "About his email." David exchanged another look with Sarah, his curiosity piquing. Her tone suggested familiarity, yet there was so much left unsaid. He had to know more. "Do you know James well?" David asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Not as well as I should have," she replied, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I'm Alex. I used to be his partner. At work, I mean." As she spoke, her fingers danced nervously around the handle of her bag, revealing layers of emotion hidden beneath her calm exterior. David's heart raced as she mentioned their connection. "I'm David, and this is Sarah." He motioned to her, feeling suddenly protective of their moment. "I can't help but feel there's more to that email than just business," Sarah interjected, her voice insightful. "It seems, well, personal." Alex drew in a deep breath, vulnerability spilling out. "It was. James and I had each other's backs for years. We were a team." She looked down for a moment, gathering herself. "And then he sent that email. Just a few words ended everything between us." David's heart sank. He could feel Alex's pain, the weight of abandonment twisting around them. "I'm sorry," he offered gently. "No one saw it coming, least of all me," she said, a hint of grief in her voice. "Everything changed overnight. I came to warn him, to talk about what we could have done differently. To remind him how important those connections are." Her eyes flickered with tears. "I think he's really trying to work on things, to find a way forward," David replied, wanting to convey hope. "He spoke about building relationships." Alex nodded slowly, her demeanor softening as the fire in her eyes dimmed to something more reflective. "I hope he does. I just wish I had done more while I had the chance." The silence between them felt heavy with unfulfilled potential, each person grappling with their own regrets and hopes. "Are you still in love with him?" Sarah asked quietly, her tone delicate yet direct. Alex's expression shifted. "I don't know. Love doesn't always mean holding on, does it?" She looked back toward the door, as if hoping to catch a glimpse of James returning, but there was only emptiness. "Sometimes it means letting go." David could feel the weight of those words bearing down on the table, a stark reminder of what was truly at stake. It was David's turn now, the air crackling with the unsaid. "Maybe it's not too late for any of us," David ventured, swallowing his doubts. But another part of him felt the tension of moving forward into unknown territory. Alex's eyes glistened, something shifted in the atmosphere. David felt the urgency, a sense of impending change hovering over their conversations like a storm on the horizon. "Whatever happens next, we need to face it together," Sarah said softly, squeezing David's hand tighter. But as David opened his mouth to acknowledge her, the cafe door swung open again. This time, it was another familiar figure, James. His eyes widened with recognition, and time seemed to freeze as David's heart raced. Would clarity finally come, or would the past entangle them all even further? James entered the cafe, his eyes scanning the room with a mixture of determination and uncertainty. As he spotted Alex, the tension shifted even further. An electric connection danced in the air, thick with unresolved feelings. "Alex," he said, his voice a blend of surprise and concern. "What are you doing here?" "I was looking for you," she replied, her voice steady but eyes flickering with emotion. "We need to talk about everything." David and Sarah exchanged glances, caught in the whirlwind of feelings that swirled like a tempest around them. This meeting was becoming more than just a chance encounter, it was turning into a critical juncture for each of them. "Can we talk outside?" James suggested. The weight of unspoken words hung in the air as he motioned towards the door. "Sure," Alex replied, her tone steadier than she felt inside. David watched as they made their way outside, a feeling of protectiveness rising within him. This was a pivotal moment for James, a chance to reconcile past mistakes, but what did it mean for him and Sarah? Were their own paths about to collide with James's fractured world? "Do you think they'll be okay?" Sarah asked softly, her gaze fixed on the cafe door. "I hope so," David said, feeling a flicker of hope within him too. "Looks like they both need closure." The atmosphere was charged as David turned back to Sarah. "We can't let this moment pass us by. We need to keep talking." She nodded, the vulnerability in her eyes betraying her fears. "You know I care about you, right? But it feels like every time we get close to understanding, something pulls us apart again." "I know," he replied, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I don't want that. I want to build something real. Something strong enough to withstand whatever storm comes our way." "Then let us face it," she said, her determination shining through. "Let us confront the past for both of us. We can't keep using it as an anchor. It's time to set sail and see where the tide takes us." For the first time, a real sense of partnership settled in his spirit. They could forge a new path from the rubble, but it would require honesty and bravery like they'd never shown before. Outside, the conversation between James and Alex escalated. Voices raised, tension palpable. David caught snippets: regret, longing, fear. It was a mirror of their own struggles, reflecting both the chaos and the clarity they too needed to pursue. Finally, as if drawn by an invisible thread, James and Alex stepped back into the cafe, a new resolve in their eyes. The atmosphere shifted again, this time it crackled with possibility. "We're making progress," James announced, looking from Alex to the duo at the table. "I think we found some common ground." "That's great," David replied, a sense of pride swelling within him at the courage they were all displaying. "Sometimes we have to face those difficult moments in order to see what really matters." Alex nodded appreciatively. "Exactly. Sometimes it takes a hard conversation to reveal what's truly at stake." "Agreed," Sarah chimed in, her voice steady. "And that's what we're trying to do, too. It's not easy. But nothing worth having ever is." James took a deep breath, his face reflecting a newfound determination. "How about we stop avoiding the difficult talks, and start asking the questions we really need the answers to?" "Like what?" David asked, raising an eyebrow. "Like how do we each move forward, with the weight of our pasts in mind?" James stated. The cafe suddenly felt smaller. This was a moment for truth, for pain, for clarity. David gazed around, feeling each pair of eyes locking in on one another, stirring a unified conviction that perhaps their stories could intertwine for healing rather than heartache. "Let us set some intentions," Sarah said, her voice centered and calm. "Let us share what we truly need, and be ready to listen. That's how we find a way through." "Then let us do it," David urged. "We can build something new from here, let us not waste this opportunity." As the small group gathered closer together, they formed a circle, eyes shining with the hope of new beginnings. With shared breaths, they began speaking truthfully, uncovering thoughts long buried. Their words wove a tapestry of vulnerability, each thread crafted with careful intention, stitched together with resolve to heal. In that moment, they found not just solace but the strength to mend their broken bonds. Outside, the winds began to shift, a gentle breeze carrying whispers of change. This was just the beginning of their renewed journey together, intertwining their lives in a way that could bring them closer than they'd ever been before. And as David looked around at the faces of those he'd once lost and now found renewed connection with, he felt a joy unlike any other. He held on to that feeling tightly, knowing they'd not only weather the storms ahead but find strength in the shared vulnerability that would guide them forward. Now, with newfound clarity and connection, it was time to step boldly into the light and embrace the new tomorrow that lay ahead. Don't wait not even one more second. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below sharing your reactions and feelings about this amazing ending. And don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to connect and uplift our community.